Australia, and I was trying to find the balance between being able to speak about the community I loved so much and being honest about it. It's hard. I think it's hard sometimes for a lot of minorities to speak about their experience without an element of sadness. That, like, you know, it's really hard for, particularly for me as an Indigenous woman, to divorce myself from all the sad things that happen within my community, as well as all the joyous things.
You talk about the sadness, and one of the sad elements of the film, and I used to be a speech language pathologist, so I love language. Your character didn't know the language anymore. Oh, so sad.
The man that played my grandfather in the film, Bernard, was so he was exactly like he was on screen. He was a beautiful man, and he I can't remember exactly the way he said it, but he basically said, I am so excited for this film because it's a lot for me to try and tell young people to maintain speaking the language and doing basket weaving and the traditional rituals of that's being passed down from him. So he understands that element of it, but the film is going to remind them of that, particularly because there is so much language spoken in the film, and there is dancing, there's celebration, and so for a lot of the Indigenous people across the Northern Territory, they don't necessarily have to be Tiwi, but they can watch that and understand that importance. And as I'm sure you know, I didn't grow up with the Tiwi community. My mum and dad raised me in Kakadu National Park, where a lot of the film is set. So I wanted to be, they say write what you know, and so it didn't feel right to me, even though I've got connections, even though I've got familial connections with Tiwi. I didn't want to write a girl that had grown up in that culture and with her family, because that's for another Tiwi girl to write. So I needed to write something that was a lot more honest from my experience, and in some ways, like I knew my family a lot more than Lauren, but the film, I guess, allowed me to spend a bit more, because you have to spend a lot of time on the islands to learn the language and sit down with the ladies, with the aunties, and hear their stories and watch how they weave. That all takes so much time, and I now live in Melbourne in Australia, so because I've had to chase my career down in the southern states, I guess it's made me realise that if I write more films up in the Northern Territory, then that's going to be my way of learning the language, reconnecting with the culture. Like it was great to be able to use the film as a way to do that.
Right. This is your first time writing a film, correct?
It is, yes, yeah. It was quite a daunting process. I was thrown in the deep end a little bit, but I think that's the fastest way you learn things, you know. So, because that's right, you just kind of go, okay, well, this is happening, right? I can manage this. I was teaching drama with my friend Joshua Tyler, and who had told me that he'd had such a great time up in the Northern Territory, and that was sort of what started our friendship, actually. Like, we found this common ground because I had never met someone before who from Melbourne or Sydney that had been up to the Northern Territory before. Oh, Australia is so big.
It is.
And I think in some ways it is a little bit sad that more Australians don't visit their own country more often. And Joshua had. And so that really touched me. Josh was the one that suggested, hey, we should set a rom-com up in the NT. And I just thought, wow, this sounds like such a great idea. But then I said to him, I've never written something before. But it was really nice that Josh had that faith in me. He said, well, but you're an actor, you know how to deconstruct a script.
Right.
You have to understand how the structure works because that's the way your character thinks. And he said, I think you know more about writing more than you think you do.
Right.
And now that I've had a taste of it, I love it.
Yeah.
Obviously it's hard work. I'm not denying that it isn't, it's not frustrating at times when you go, well, I've hit a wall, I just can't, I can't think of anything anymore. But it was just so empowering for me as a young performer.
Right. Well, I mean, there are a ton of rom-coms out there, and you are able to maintain a sense of comedy throughout,
Yeah.
and still hit those great notes of heart and drama.
There were obviously times where things were really easy and they flowed, but then there were other times that it was really tough, because sometimes I just wanted to put everything I knew about the territory and all the communities up there that I loved so much. I just wanted to speak about all of it. And it's hard because because it becomes just so much information for the audience that they don't know where to place their empathy, and that's what we wanted more than anything. We wanted people to have that empathy. We didn't want them to stop caring. So it was about highlighting certain things, and that was tough. That was tough to cut a lot of things out, but
I bet it was.
It was definitely a learning process because it was about trusting that what information we were going to give was going to be meaningful to them.
And I will never listen to that song in the same way ever again. If you leave me now, it's like, okay, those two songs are just playing in my head over and over, which is kind of fun.
It's extremely catchy. Willem keeps singing it constantly.
Rights to use that song.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Is that tough to do? Or did you have other songs? You're like, nope, can't do that one, or tell me about that.
It's actually quite funny because I was just sort of cheekily putting this music into the script, even though we didn't have the rights to it yet. I just sort of went, I think this song should happen at this point. And that one thing I've learnt about writing Top End Wedding is that you just ask for things.
Right.
And it might come across as brash, but
might work in your favor too.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the worst. I've just learnt that the most painful thing that could happen is being told no, and as that might seem like a step back, at least you've got other avenues to think about. You can let that rest, but if you don't ask, you're never going to know.
Right.
So that's what we did essentially, and it was so great that Goalpost Pictures did what they could. Again, they did the same thing. They asked. Okay. We asked Janet. I wrote a letter to Janet Jackson. I said, because we've heard that she's very understandably protective of the songs, and I would have completely understood if she said no, but I went through all of the songs that I grew up with as a teenager, because that's what was important to me. It had to be a nostalgic song, one that girls of my generation would have listened to. And I was trying to think of another song, and it was really hard to find another song. And so I wrote a letter to Janet Jackson, and I was such a fangirl when I wrote it. I was saying, dear Miss Jackson, I need you to know, what, as an Indigenous woman, as a woman of colour, what a big fan I am of your work. I need you to know how much of the Aboriginal community loved your work as well. So I basically explained to her how much the song meant to me, and how much work I'd put into this film.
Right.
And she just gave it the big tick. What? Janet Jackson, like I lost my mind. Like I absolutely lost my mind that she would have read this letter and she would have given it the tick of approval. Like I just love her so much more.
Oh, I bet you do.
I didn't think I could love her any more than I could. Thank
so
you.
much.
So